Yeah, it is another episode of the On and Windbags. RJ Clifford, Juan Soto. Let's have some fun today. Another emergency live show, which is what we do at this time of the year, right? Black Monday was Monday. Tuesday, Antonio Pierce canned, did a live video, and our big show recorded last night. That's currently on podcast and YouTube right now. We expected Antonio Pierce to be canned. It wasn't a matter of if, just a matter of when. And we were like, yeah, Raiders single and ready to mingle. Need a head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. But hey, at least the GM's taken care of. Not no more. General manager Tom Telesco fired today. The Raiders are very single and ready to mingle. They got their makeup on, push-up bra, mini skirt. They are looking for bodies, Soto.
Looking for love in all the wrong places.
And all the
And
coordinating positions.
it really, because like in the show, there was a segment where we were talking about the sell job that the team has to do given all of the uncertainty with the Raiders right now.
Mhm.
And it wasn't an optimal situation for a head coach to come in without their own GM, which is what happens a lot of times now. But I was trying to sell it as, hey, we're more stable and this and that. Well, let's throw that out the window. We're not more stable. We're still impulsive. And reports are that this points to a report that we've already heard from some of the main head coaching candidates, that they know that they're hot head coaching candidates and they want their own GMs. They don't want to be handcuffed to somebody they're not partnered with, basically. And because of that, I think that's why Telesco's gone.
Yeah, I think that's the overriding theory, right? Because it was definitely not job related for Tom Telesco. He nailed the draft, which is the most important part of a GM's job. He nailed the Christian Wilkins signing. It definitely looked like there was a vision. He was best player available. Got basically 3.5 to 4 starters out of the draft right away, which is a massive home run, a future Hall of Famer, and arguably the best tight end in football already with Brock Bowers, right? So he did a great job in the short period of time that he was here. So it cannot be job related. No owner can look at what Tom Telesco did this season and be like, oh, he really messed up. Like, not even messed up, but fired after 1 year messed up. Like, it has to be exactly what the overriding theory is if the Raiders are going, and this sucks because you never ever want to lose great employees. And Tom Telesco is. He was a really good general manager for the Chargers. For the 1 year he was here, he was awesome. He had about 1,000, he had misses here and there, but nobody bats 1,000, and he was doing fantastic. So I understand the logic, Soto. It's like, okay, the Raiders are not I hate to say it, but let's call a spade a spade. Let's be real here. The Raiders aren't an attractive spot for a head coach. Don't have a quarterback, don't have a running back room, an owner that, whether you think he's impulsive or not, he has a track record of hire, fire, hire, fire, hire, fire. This will be his 8th head coach since he's taken over. You have to sweeten the pot. And it looks like the way the Raiders are sweetening up the pot is you get to pick your GM. You get to be your own GM. You're obviously going to pick your defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator. You have carte blanche under what you're going to do with the blessing of Tom Brady. That's how we're going to lure, Soto, a Ben Johnson or one of these really, really highly sought after head coaches.
Yeah, I don't want to I'm going to walk back a little bit on the Telesco talk, right? There were some really big misses and some head scratching moves. Okay. Didn't solidify the offensive line, even though you and I were saying, hey, we need more help on the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And, we didn't bring back Josh Jacobs, even though we had a lot of cap space that we didn't use. And the quarterback situation was freaking atrocious. Those were all his choices. So, yes, I agree with you. I don't think it was because of his performance, but it wasn't like it was all sunshine and rainbows. there was some really bad points as well. So I would say it's better than better than not, but it wasn't like everything that's good up here and the bad stuff was down here. It was a lot closer than that.
Well, I think the Josh Jacobs non-re-signing, I think the damage was done before Telesco got here. And you and I are both like, we're not going to pay what Josh Jacobs is asking for. So like we were on board with that. The Minshew signing, I think, looked it was obviously a bad signing. Like there's no getting around
I'm not defending Telesco and I'm not burying the guy, but you're out there saying that this guy was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I'm saying, look, there were some really, really big misses as well. It wasn't all great.
I think in hindsight, Minshew was obviously bad. At the time of the signing, we're like, we get it, right? He was coming off in your playoff season, a winning record. He had never had a chance to be the guy. What could he become? And when you look at all the other free agents that were available, Minshew was.
I'm not going to argue this with you, RJ. I don't have a lot of time. I'm not going to argue Tom Telesco. I think we can both agree that there was some big misses.
I don't think there were any face palms. I think there were decisions that didn't age well, which are misses. But there's a difference.
The offensive line we knew right away. The fact that he had a ton of cap not used, and we didn't do much of anything instead of Andrews Pete and Whitehair, and who were awful. So there were some big misses, and we knew they were.
He missed on some journeyman linemen, but the very, very big deals he crushed. I think, can we agree? Telesco wasn't fired because of performance.
I said that already, but I'm not trying to paint the picture that he did all this great work and we got rid of him, even though he did a great job. There was some big misses as well.
When was the last? Who was the last GM better than Tom Telesco that the Raiders had?
That's not the point. I don't want to argue. I don't have an unlimited amount of time to talk to you about this.
I want to give a fair evaluation. Like, look, we're going to move on for sure, but I think we need to do an evaluation of Telesco too.
I think we already did. I think we already did.
I want to know who. Like, I think Reggie McKenzie had a really one good year, which, in fairness, that's all Telesco's had. But I struggle to think of the last time there was a really good GM that did better than Tom Telesco did for the Raiders.
Yeah. And that's the bar is set pretty low.
The bar is
so
pretty
just
low.
Because I mean, just like I always say with players, don't compare Raiders with who else is on the Raiders. Compare them to who else is in the league. You got to do the same thing with Telesco. You don't compare him to who the Raiders have had in the past. You compare him to what good GMs are out there in the league right now.
Yeah, I would say he had one of the better seasons of any GM in the league.
I don't agree with that.
He had one of the best drafts for sure. His biggest signing I thought was a hit. It didn't work out because he got hurt, right? With
I mean, he didn't fill the position he needed to, which was quarterback. He got the rug pulled out from under him, even though there was teams ahead of him that didn't select the quarterback. Half the teams ahead of him didn't select the quarterback, and he didn't get one. One of the 6 that would be ahead of any of the quarterbacks that are in this draft this year. So, yeah, I understand that from where he selected, home runs, right? Especially the first 3, maybe even the first 4. But, taking a step back, it's not like, this guy, crushed it.
He wasn't like godlike untouchable, but he was very good. And so, and I make that point, not to fight with you. I make that point to say,
well, you should have liked doing it.
Well, no, you get very defensive. You're sensitive soda, but I think you're taking it the wrong way.
I'm not trying to get defensive here. I'm trying to let you know that I don't have an unlimited amount of time, and arguing a moot point is not doing us any good.
It's not a moot point because
it is. It's moot. It's not mute. It's moot, and it is because he's gone, and we need to figure out why it happened and what we're going to do moving forward.
And that's my point, is you have to establish how good of a job he did to establish why he was fired, because he wasn't fired for performance. He was fired because
I agree with that.
Yeah. And so we're driving that point home because that's what we do on the show. So relax, you did the right thing. Take a deep breath. Tom Telesco,
I'm going to go. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Don't end the stream again.
I'm just going to leave because you wanted to do whatever you want later.
Okay. Bye. So my point being, Antonio Pierce wasn't fired for a big, like, grand scheme of a reason. He was fired for performance. He was not good enough to be head coach of the Raiders. Tom Telesco, not fired for that reason. Tom Telesco was fired because they want to make a big sweeping move, because they got to sweeten the pot. He was fired not because he did a really good job, right? He missed on some journeyman guards. Okay. The Minshew signing, obviously it didn't work out, and it wasn't a good signing. But if you can take yourself back 10 months ago when it happened, when you looked at who was available at quarterback, it wasn't like a giant face palm, what the hell is happening? You know? It wasn't a like, oh my God, this is the dumbest signing ever. This wasn't like Antonio Pierce punting on 4th and 1 with 2 minutes left, right? Like, we've seen some face palm moments. It wasn't like drafting Alex Leatherwood that, John Gruden did. It was, like, with who's available, we got ass out of the draft because all 6 quarterbacks got drafted before we were ready. The free agency market, if you predicted that Sam Darnold would be what he is today, please send me the receipts, because no one predicted it. If you predicted Baker Mayfield would be where he is today, send me the receipts, please, because nobody predicted it. Gardner Minshew was in that realm. Now, you could have preferred one guy or the other. You could have thought, all right, I think, I don't think Gardner will do as good as Baker. I think, this guy will do better than that. But if you said, look, oh my God, Baker Mayfield is going to crush it, go to the playoffs, have a great season, Gardner Minshew is going to regress, you're pretty damn smart. And I would love to see the receipts, because Gardner Minshew was in that mix. Don't let hindsight ruin it for you. Gardner Minshew, at the time of the signing, was like, okay, of the free agent guys available, he's kind of in the mix a little bit, right? Obviously, he wasn't. Didn't work out. Now, whether that's Getsy's fault or Minshew's fault or whoever, it was not a good fit. So yeah, that's a mark on Telesco. But there's face palm, we all know this isn't going to work decisions, and then there's like, okay, it didn't work out decisions. And this is one of those ones. And I bring that up only because we have to do a postmortem on Telesco to know what we do moving forward. We got to look at, like, all right, why was Tom Telesco fired? Where does he rank as far as GMs? Because he was an above average GM, top 10 GM. He had a top 10 season as a general manager. You know how hard it is to crush the draft? The draft is a crapshoot. Talk about it all the time. It is a crapshoot. And he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. And no one was heaping the praises of these draft picks more than Soto. But now that he's gone, it's kind of like, well, I know why he's gone. It's this. It's like, no, guys, like, let's not let the moment take away from what we've been saying for a long time. Tom Telesco was the best general manager the Raiders have had since maybe Al Davis's prime. Again, one season. The way you truly judge a general manager is how they do long term. And Soto 2 days ago was saying, well, that's the big appeal, right? It's like Telesco, you've got stability, you have a 5-year plan that he's built up, and step 1 so far has been great. And so when the Raiders are now like, okay, the one good bright spot on this staff, he's gone too, that sends a message. We are open for business. We as a Raiders franchise are open for business. We're going to lure you in with everything you want. Hey, Ben Johnson. Hey, whoever. You get to be head coach. You get to pick your defensive coordinator because it looks like Patrick Graham's gone. You get to pick your offensive coordinator, the entire coaching staff. Hell, we might even let you pick the general manager. Now, just because they're firing Tom Telesco, that doesn't mean for sure that the head coach is going to have GM powers, right? It doesn't mean for sure that that's going to be the case. But it does say, like, hey, who do you want as your general manager? Who do you want as the guy that's going to be your personnel guy? You get a say in it. Maybe it's a package deal. And maybe it is the guy that does both, right? Like a John Gruden or something. That, yeah, he had Mike Mayock, but he was just kind of there to do his research. He was just his buddy that he knew from the NFL Network to, like, give him a job and have him do some busy work for you. The decisions landed on John Gruden. It could be any of those things. The negative side of this is that we're losing a good asset, a good employee, which Tom Telesco was. The downside or the upside is it's sending a message to every potential head coach out there that we will let you do what you want because you have to sweeten up the pot. The Raiders, it pains me to say it, is not a great destination for a head coach. Don't have a quarterback, don't have a running back room, a long history of firings. Look, this is to be the third straight year that the Raiders have a new GM and head coach. Mark Davis this will be the 8th head coach Mark Davis will have signed since he took over as owner. And if you're a head coach and you want to commit, think of it like head coaches are humans too, right? Don't think of them as robots or just what you see on TV. These are human beings with wives, kids. They want to live where they want. They want to put down roots. When they sign up their kid for school, they want them to be there for a long time. They want to build up into a community, have a home. When you move your family from wherever you're from to Las Vegas, you want to stay there. You want to make it home. You want to make this franchise your family. You want to make a house a home. And so if you're a head coach, and we want a head coach with options, like, look, there's only 32 head coaching spots in the NFL. There's only 6 openings right now. There are more head coaches that I would be happy with than there are jobs, which is great. But I don't want the 6th best option out of 6. I want the best. I want the very best of everything. And this is how you open up. This is how you open up that opportunity, is you sweeten the pot. Because you have to go against the Raiders' losing streak. You have to go against the Raiders not having a quarterback. You got to go against a long history of Mark Davis firing people. You need to sweeten that pot up with something. And the Raiders, whether it's Tom Brady or Mark Davis or whoever, are deciding that this is how we're going to sweeten the pot. You get carte blanche. And that's not nothing, right? It's like Ben Johnson's getting interviewed by the Raiders tomorrow afternoon, right? There's a reason why it happened now. If the Raiders knew that they were moving on from Tom Telesco, they would have done it on Tuesday. Same as they did Antonio Pierce, right? That great line from Jack Nicholson and Hoffa when he was Jimmy Hoffa and he took over the union and he puts down a list, gives it to Danny DeVito, and he's like, all right, here's all the list of guys that are going to get fired. You do it all at one time because you get it done right away, and the people that are left feel very grateful. When you fire someone, you do it in big waves. You don't nitpick. You get it all done at once. So this wasn't part of the plan. This was a decision that came after they decided to fire. I'm not saying it wasn't bannered about or thought about, but this wasn't the plan when they fired Antonio Pierce to also fire Tom Telesco. This is something that kind of came together later. And I don't think it's coincidence that they're interviewing Ben Johnson tomorrow. And that's when they decided to make this decision. Because you need to have something to counter. Like if I'm Ben Johnson, I'm getting interviewed by, let's say, Tom Brady and Mark Davis, right? You're like, hey, how you doing? I'm Ben. Nice to meet you guys. Hey, looking forward to talking to you. I have a couple concerns, and they are very, very valid concerns. If I'm going to move my family from Detroit to Las Vegas, I don't want to have to move again in 2 years, right? I have an issue. You guys have fired, you have had 8 different head coaches under your tenure. This will be back-to-back-to-back seasons with new head coaches, new GMs. Am I going to be around for a while? Also, you don't have a quarterback, and the prospects of getting a quarterback don't look all that great. You have 20 years of without having a playoff win. Why should I come here? And Mark Davis and Tom Brady's report is, you get whatever you want, bro. You get carte blanche. First off, we have more draft capital than any other team. We have the second most cap space out of any other team. We have the best strip clubs in town, or best strip clubs in America. Trust me, I know. I've been to nearly every city in America and nearly every strip club. This isn't Mark Davis talking. This is RJ talking. Best strip clubs in America. One of the best eating towns in America, Las Vegas. The weather is fantastic. Don't let them fool you. July and August, it gets unbearably hot, but rest of the year, it's very, very nice. Much better than Detroit. You're never going to have to snow shovel your driveway again, Ben. And also, maybe most importantly, you get carte blanche. No state tax. Thank you. MF0F09. A lot of good reasons to move to Nevada and Las Vegas, right? But most importantly, football-wise, you get to pick everything, or at least have a major say. You're not coming in and just filling in the cracks of what's available. You get to build this franchise with Tom Brady. Because Ben Johnson and whoever's coming in as coach isn't dumb. They know Tom Brady's going to have a lot of power. But you and Tom Brady get to build this franchise how you want to. And to be honest, that's probably the next biggest selling point is, hey, Ben Johnson, offensive genius, you get the greatest quarterback, arguably player ever to work with, hand in hand. And a guy in Tom Brady that's never going to fight with you. He's not like a team president that fights over power with like a coach or general manager because he's an owner. Tom Brady can't be fired. He's not part of the politics. This isn't Game of Thrones with Tom Brady. He's omnipotent to all of it. He's not part of that political process. He's not trying to get on Mark Davis's good side or politic his way into more power. He's an owner. He can't be fired. And he has the cachet of being the greatest football player of all time. So Ben Johnson, or whoever we want. I'm just saying Ben Johnson because he's like the number one guy, right? He's the hottest chick on the block. He's the prom queen. Ben Johnson, you have full draft capital plus an extra third, second most cap space in football. Tom Brady is your confidant, friend, helper, and he'll never backstab you. He has no reason to. He doesn't need a politic. He's an owner. And also, the cupboards are bare. You get to put whatever groceries you want in. Come to Raider Nation. And that's why Tom Telesco was fired. To be able to completely open up those doors. This told me a couple things also. All the beat reporters said he was safe. All the beat reporters, as of Tuesday, were like, yep, Antonio Pierce out, Tom Telesco's here to stay. Now, I want to be fair to beat reporters because stuff like this is very hush-hush and very secret. And so if you get a leak, you take what you can get. But it is a reminder, everybody, and a reminder for myself as well. Take reports with grains of salt. It was unanimous, pretty much. The national media, the local beat writers, we echoed it, right? All reports are Telesco's safe. And it made sense. He did a good job. He's a top 10 GM. It made sense, right? Add a little stability. Hey, that's some, if we want a new, hot, young offensive or defensive coordinator coming in, let's take some responsibilities off their shoulders. Is Ben Johnson ready for all the work that comes with being, the GM part as well? Like, hopefully, maybe he's a wonder kid. That's the goal if we get him. But it is a reminder, right? Like everyone's like, oh, Tom Telesco's fine. He's safe. He's sticking it out. This is just Antonio Pierce thing. Nope. Negative ghostwriter pattern is full. Another thing to remember. Just one more time to reiterate what it means to have a GM and head coach available option as its own package deal, what it could mean. Like I said, there are 6 NFL franchises looking for a head coach. Only 2 are looking for a GM and a head coach, Raiders and the Jets. That opens things up. That definitely opens things up. If what is enticing to a potential head coach coming in is, I want to be able to build this thing in my image. I want to be able to staff it completely. I want people, maybe like I don't get to handpick my GM, but I want to be able to have some say in it. I want whoever is coming in as GM that I can work. I want to know I can work with them. Think about it like your normal life, man. Who wants to go to an office and work for somebody that they hate or work next to somebody that they hate? You just don't get along. And maybe you don't hate them. Maybe you're both good people, but you just don't jive. It happens, man. Talk to any parent with kids. There could be your daughter's best friend from school can be the coolest little girl ever, but you hate it because you can't get along with their parents. And they're fine people. They're nice enough. They say hi, tip their hat. Their kid bathes, doesn't pick their nose, but you just don't work with them. They're Chiefs fans or something. Or even worse, they hate sports. They're really into fencing or something weird. They got a Pokemon tattoo. You're like, ugh. I don't want my daughter to be friends with that kid. The parents are weird. That could happen. Like and especially When you are the prom queen, the one everyone's looking to date, like Ben Johnson, you get choices. The little things add up. This was a message. Firing Tom Telesco at roughly 11:15 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on a Thursday, 3 days after Black Monday, 2 days after firing Antonio Pierce, was a message to every potential head coach. We will open things up for you. Nothing is untouchable here, right? Other than Mark Davis and Tom Brady, nothing's untouchable. What do you want? And even though I'm still kind of digesting, like I wish we could have kept Telesco, I do love the message. I do understand the movement. This is what we keep talking about with Tom Brady when it comes to, I don't know if he's going to be a great GM, team president, czar of football, whatever, right? Like, I don't know that. No one knows that. Tom Brady doesn't know that. I'm sure he thinks he is, but no one knows that. I like to think optimistically he could be. Although the skills with being a really, really great player don't necessarily always translate to being a really, really good NFL executive or a team executive. It doesn't always pan out great. The skills are the Venn diagram of skills don't overlap as much as we want. But this team needs a Tom Brady-like substance. Someone who knows football, that has a lot of cachet, a lot of influence with important people, someone that can lure talent over, that isn't involved in the politics, isn't Game of Throning, like all the other kiss asses that work for Mark Davis, all the yes men that fill up that headquarters in Las Vegas. Needs someone not like that, someone who's above all that knows what they're doing. And that is Tom Brady. So if it's not Tom Brady, it needs to be somebody like Tom Brady. So I love that they're taking a swing at Tom Brady. He's an owner, knows a bunch of shit. And I keep repeating it, but it's true. We don't know how much he wants to be involved, Tom Brady. Does he want to be like, putting 60, 70 hours a day in, putting his fingerprints on every part of the organization? Or does he want to if you have some questions, I'll give some advice. You're hiring a head coach. I'll let you know what I think. You're trying to draft a quarterback. I'll send you some notes, but really I'm just keep broadcasting for Fox and take my Instagram model girlfriends to Cancun. I'd rather do that. Hang out with my kids. Don't eat strawberries and eat a bunch of avocado, whatever it is Tom Brady does to fill his days. It may be one of those two things, right? It could be anything from middling investment. Maybe I'll come in and help out to you can't pick this color of the curtains without Tom Brady's approval. We don't know which one it's going to be, but we do know we need someone like Tom Brady, someone who knows football, that's out of the politics, not a yes man, not a kiss ass, that can steer the organization in a direction. And something big and sweeping like this feels like that. This feels like getting rid of a good GM like Tom Telesco in order for a bigger picture. Because it is a big decision getting rid of a good employee. I know hirings and firings happen all the time in every organization. It doesn't make it any less awkward. No one goes to work to want to fire people unless you're a psycho, unless you're a complete sociopath. You're not like George Jetson's boss from the Jetsons who just like screaming you're fired. Like there's some bosses like that, but not most. It's not the fun part of the job. So to do it, there's got to be a good reason. There's got to be some foresight. It's going to be part of a bigger plan. And this feels like a Tom Brady or somebody else doing a big plan to take one step back, to hypothetically take two steps forward. And that's what firing Tom Telesco feels like to me. Now we are only one of two teams with a head coach and GM vacancy. And that is appealing. That is very appealing to a certain type of head coach and GM. And if this brings us a little bit closer to getting the best head coach available, then so be it. You never want to get rid of great employees. You never want to get rid of good people that brought positive, that nails drafts and, Christian Wilkins signing was great. It wasn't all sunshine and roses, but he was a very good GM, at least in the 1 year that we had. I would love to see what his 5-year plan looked like. But we don't. And there's not even to say that the gamble will pay off. Even with all this, the Raiders still have to overcome not having a quarter. At the end of the day, whoever the head coach is, whoever the new GM is, they have to overcome not having a quarterback, not having a running back room of any substance, and 2 decades of losing. You got to overcome that. And it's a gamble. It's a gamble moving on from Telesco. Not the world's biggest gamble, right? He wasn't the God's gift to GMing, but he was good. How often do the Raiders get a good GM? Doesn't happen very often. There's been GMs that have had good seasons, that have put together, a couple good, a good draft, but not a lot of good GMs have come through those Raiders doors. Here's hoping the gamble pays off. Let's take some questions. Reese Rock, Brady is burning the forest to grow true greatness from the seed. That's what it feels like. I mean, that's certainly the strategy, right? Like I'm in Southern California with these wildfires. Let me tell you, you have to clear that brush. Shout out to all the first responders and all the people getting victims of those fires here in Southern California. It is a miracle. Only 5 people have died. It is a miracle. And, obviously every life is precious, but only losing 5 with how like crazy these fires are, like all of northern LA counties on fire. It's like, oof, that's crazy. Also Reese Rock, Brady is getting the best at all positions, quarterback, head coach, and GM. Let's hope so. That's the goal, right? I don't know how you're going to get the best quarterback. I don't know who that could be. But head coach, GM, open for business, man. Open for business. Eli W. Tom Brady has 0 experience as a general manager, plus he is moonlighting as a broadcaster. So I bring this up probably every other show, but I feel like I have to keep doing it. Of course, yeah, Tom Brady has 0 experience as a GM. Every single good GM at some point had 0 experience as a GM. But you got to start somewhere, right? You got to start somewhere. And what better place to start than someone like Tom Brady, who can call up almost any important person in the football world. They'll not only take his call, but they'll listen to what he says. If Tom Brady asks almost anybody a favor, they will at worst consider it. That's how much power Tom Brady has and how influential he is and how much cachet he has in this industry. And also, he's an owner. So he doesn't have to politic. He doesn't have to kiss Mark Davis's ass. Again, I'm not saying Tom Brady is going to be an amazing general manager or team president or dictator of football operations or whatever title or not title he gets. I'm saying someone like Tom Brady needs to happen. And if not Tom Brady, it needs to be somebody else. And Tom Brady seems like the best possible person to be the guy right now. Guys, we need a foundation shaking change here. That's what the Raiders need. You don't overcome 20 years of not winning the playoffs, 10 years of the worst defense in football with just like, let's get the best coach we can and hope it pans out. We'll get a good quarterback and that's all we're missing. There needs to be foundational, ground-shaking changes. And that's what Antonio Pierce was opposite of. He was an extension of Raider Nation. He's business as usual. And with a great, great franchise, that's the way to go, right? We got a winning formula. Let's keep it going. That's great if you're the Steelers or the Bucks or, not the Pats recently, but long time with the Pats or the 49ers or all these franchises that are consistently in the playoffs, constantly challenging, always getting great talent. Coaches look good. They have winning formulas that you want to stick with. That's not the Raiders. That's not the Raiders. The Raiders don't have a winning formula. They need a reboot. And that's what Tom Brady's bringing, it seems. Not it seems, that's what's happening. What else? Jeremy Schulte, man, Getsy must feel like a total asshole. That dude basically got everyone canned in one season. I go back and like when you think of like face palming decisions, that was a big one. Way where everyone do your best to go back like 10 months ago. Luke Getsy was the one where just like, really? He was the 3rd choice and he should have been like the 8th choice. That seemed like a panic hire. Luke Getsy. Right? You got Cliff Kingsbury, who was, there's varying reports on why Cliff was signed and then wasn't. Was it just because of the 2 or 3 year deal? Was he pitting Washington and Las Vegas against each other? Does the prospect of having the number 2 overall pick so much better than having the 15, whatever we were, 14 or 15? Do you have a chance to get a quarterback? I don't know what it was, but no Cliff. And then Chip Kelly, who's now in the playoffs for Ohio State as offensive coordinator. I would love to have him as offensive coordinator, but the reports were that he wanted to bring a big chunk of his personnel, and the Raiders didn't want to pay that or do that or let him have that kind of decision making. It's like, guys, you got to sweeten the pot. I think that's probably more than anything. Like that Chip Kelly example is the best one. We could have Chip Kelly as our offensive coordinator. Way better than Luke Getsy. And whether you like Chip Kelly or not, we can all agree he blows Getsy out of the water. But you didn't want to hire staff? It's like, beggars can't be choosers. You don't get to be picky when you're looking for coaches and GMs and coordinators and you're the Raiders. You don't get to be picky. You have to do things like we're doing now. Firing a good general manager to open the door for more talent. Minshew picks his nose. He picks it and it goes into the wrong place. We've seen that, right? I'm a nose picker. It's being a booger picker is no big deal. Blow my nose in the shower, get big hairy ones. It's gross. But gotta be careful with flick it. Pick and flick. That's the key. Pick and flick. Telesco drafted Powers, JPJ, and Glaze fired. Yeah. I mean, that's why this was more shocking than Antonio Pierce, right? What's the most important job of a GM? The draft. You can argue it's how you handle the cap, but both are very important. But draft is what you want to nail. He nailed this one. If you only consider the draft, Telesco was top 10, but he failed in other areas. What? I mean, come on, guys. Where did he score an F as a general manager? What were his face palm giant F decisions that he made that were fireable offenses? Minshew didn't work out, but I think in hindsight, that looks worse than it was. At the time, it was an okay hire. It was like, okay, like considering the landscape and who's available, it worked. He was not a top 10 GM, according to Daniel Munoz. He absolutely was. He absolutely was. Raider Nation, like with Josh Jacobs not keeping him, it's like he wanted so much money. Let him go get it somewhere else. We weren't going to pay him, and rightfully so. Like, not that our run game didn't suffer from it, but the market for running backs is what it was. You got to develop the running backs. You can't just keep paying veteran ones. The draft, top 5 draft, considering the placement and who we got, how many starters, and an all-pro and Brock Bowers, 2.5 other starters. You don't get that. Like, how many 3rd, 4th rounders are starters in the NFL? Not many. He left tons of cap space open to be able to sign all the free agents that we need. Like, think of this. How many GMs, afraid for their jobs, just empty the coffers of the cap to keep their job? It happens all the time. GMs are just like, I'm going to spend. Look at the mess that Josh McDaniels left and his GM. Missing a 1st and 2nd pick because of the Devontae Adams trade. Signed this massive deal to Waller and then immediately traded him. Signed a massive deal to what am I blanking? Damn it. I'm 9 days into dry January, so the brain's not working. Hunter Renfrow. Gave him a massive deal and then didn't use him and then let him walk. Like, where's Telesco's giant fails that we're talking about? Like, where are these giant fails? You know what I mean? Especially the Raiders, who consistently whiff on 1st-round draft picks. Like, whiff after whiff after whiff after whiff. Like, when Tyree Wilson, who is like heading into year 3 and is slightly improving, we're happy about, that's a problem. That's a sign that your first rounders haven't been doing very well. When we're like okay with the fact that Tyree Wilson is making steady improvements and might be okay in year 3. When you're picking top 10 overall, they need to be monsters right away, or it's a fail. Telesco got a monster, a shocking monster in Brock Bowers. Like, there's like, where are these monster fails, right? Eichenberg and Labe can't get on the field over undrafted free agents. Yeah, this is 6th and 7th rounders. They're the same as undrafted free agents. This is my point. Yeah, of like the smaller issues. How many 6th and 7th rounders regularly start in the NFL? Not often. Not often. And again, if he made mistakes, let's point it out and correct them. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't omnipotent. He deserves criticism when he does screw up, and we've given him criticism. But it's like, he didn't nail everything, but no GM does. And that's why it's so important to understand what Tom Telesco did to understand how big it is that they got rid of him. Because now it's a huge message to everybody. We are open for business. Hey, hot young head coach, you get to pick your offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. You work hand in hand with the new general manager, your entire staff. You get to pick the hottest secretary with the corner office, pick the color of the curtains. You get to pick which bowl Mark Davis cuts his hair in, right? Like, we're giving you every opportunity, every option to show you how much we mean business, to show you we are turning things around. It's not just a message to whoever the next head coach is coming in. It's a message to the NFL. It is no longer business as usual. Okay? It is no longer business as usual. Okay, Black Ice. You can't count Bowers. He was a no-brainer. No, he wasn't. The Raiders desperately needed cornerback and tackle help, and none of the corners or tackles were taken at that time. It was not a no-brainer. Again, I think we're taking ourselves out of the moment. I think we're living in the moment too much. Brock Bowers was nowhere near a no-brainer when he was drafted. Of like the 50 mock drafts I saw, like one of them had Brock Bowers going to the Raiders. Don't give me this no-brainer bullshit. It feels like a no-brainer now. It wasn't. Fortress of Shred. Jacobs bitched out on us as soon as he got paid. Deserved to get cut. I don't look at it that way. I'm so sick and tired of like with Maxx Crosby, right? What a great example. He says one thing, he vents a little bit of frustration talking about another player and understanding where they're coming from. And some of Raider Nation are like, fuck this guy. He doesn't want to be there. Get rid of him. It's like, is there a single player, coach, GM, janitor, or secretary at the Raiders that has more of a right to complain than Maxx Crosby? No. If Maxx Crosby doesn't have the right to vent a little bit about how frustrating it is that the Raiders can't win, then who does? So we got to stop with like, oh, this player's unhappy. Fuck him. Let's move on. Like, the 49ers have someone like sit out of camp every season, and they keep almost all of them. That's what good franchises do. They keep good players. Every time someone like vents a little bit, you want to get rid of them? That's not what good organizations do. That's not what good companies do. That's certainly not what good NFL programs do. Move on from a guy because he vented one time on his podcast? Get out of here. Jeremy Schulte, Crosby is justified in his frustration. New head coach every other year. Give me a break. Yeah, man. Like, what the hell do me and Soto do on this show most of the time? Vent our frustrations about what's going on. We're not sacrificing our bodies for the Raiders. We're not like, quote unquote, wasting our prime on a team that can't win. Like, do I want Maxx Crosby to want to leave or vent or talk to anybody? No, of course not. Like, I wish football players were robots and they didn't have emotions and feelings and they did nothing but eat chicken breasts and broccoli, lift weights, rehab, and play great. Like, yeah, that's what I wish everyone was like Brock Bowers. It was just a robot that does nothing but football. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like that'd be nice, but these are human beings. They're people. They're 20-something-year-old millionaires with a lot of yes men around them, a lot of people in their ears. What are you doing here? Why don't you go somewhere better? Oh, look how good this franchise is. Like, Maxx Crosby deals with that all day long. In between waking up at 4 a.m. to go lift weights and try to be better. I'm very curious what Maxx Crosby thinks of all this. He talked a little bit about on his the Rush podcast about, Antonio Pierce getting fired, but that was a little predictable. We kind of saw that coming. Tom Telesco and everything I'm talking about, I wonder what that one is, Raider Paul, Sam Darnold, Matt Stafford, Justin Field, free agents. There's a lot of experiment / Band-Aid / let's see if we can turn chicken salad out of chicken shit quarterbacks. There's a lot of them out there. I don't know if there's anyone that get excited. Are you going to be really excited about Stafford or Fields? Like, Stafford's way up there in age. I don't know if he's going to want to leave that situation that he's in LA. Justin Fields is a big reclamation project, but certainly players with that kind of talent last. They get second chances and third chances and fourth chances. What else? I don't think the Vikings are going to let Darnold go. I'm all for going after McCarthy, though. Yeah, there is a world where they keep both. If the Vikings win the Super Bowl, I don't see how you move on from Sam Darnold, right? You franchise tag him and extend him. At that point, you make an offer for JJ and see if the GM wants to move. I think, if you're thinking like a coach, you want to keep both quarterbacks and say, like, all right, I got my quarterback now, my quarterback of the future. But it's not like Darnold's old. I think he's 27. But you definitely make that call, right? You 1,000%. Any quarterback needy team, you call the Vikings and say, where are you at? What are you thinking? What else? What other questions do we got? I'd take Bo Nix, JJ, or Penix over Bowers, RJ. Well, it wasn't an option. It wasn't an option. Right? Like, it turned out that it worked out for those quarterbacks, but it wasn't an option. That's the thing, man. Like, these teams weren't budging in that draft. They weren't. You take the best of what you can do. And that was Bowers. Dutchmaster 710, we are a 4-win team, RG. Why are you so upset a bad GM got fired? A bad GM? A bad GM. Come on, guys. With the draft he had, the big free agent signing he hit on Christian Wilkins. Okay, he missed on some journeyman linemen. Minshew didn't work out. A bad GM? Honestly, were we a 4-win team because Telesco didn't nail the draft? Come on. And also, it wasn't Telesco's decision to start Minshew over Farva. That wasn't a Telesco decision. It wasn't Telesco's decision to punt on 4th and 1 with 2 minutes left and you're down by a touchdown. That wasn't his decision. Telesco was building a 5-year plan, right? That's what smart GMs do. And it's like the great Kenny Rogers said, sometimes you got to hold them, sometimes you got to fold them. You don't go all, you wouldn't, this wasn't an all-in season. There was so much cap space available to sign our free agents and to move into next season. You got to have a long-term vision. And it looked like that's what Tom Telesco was doing. We'll never know, right? Because it was just one season. But we have the second most cap space. We have the most draft capital. And we have a really good rookie class. Like one of the best rookie classes in the NFL. And you're telling me that's bad GMing? I mean, that's bad GMing. Those three things, the three biggest things. Okay. I think that's enough. More stuff's going to happen. We'll see what happens the next coming days when all the head coaching interviews go down. I think there's 4 currently booked. Now we need a GM as well. So like I said, it's just us and the Jets that both have a head coach and GM vacancy, which means something. There's only 6 NFL teams that need a head coach. And there are a lot of candidates. Like I'll tweet out a list of my like backflips in the hallway, excited, fist pump, I can handle it, or I'm drinking bleach, I don't like it. There are more candidates I like than don't. And there are more candidates I like than there are positions available. So I love that the Raiders are saying, look, we're all in. Moving on from Tom Telesco is a message to everybody. We will get rid of a good general manager to open up to get the best of the best. All right, until that changes, knock on wood if you're with me.
Hey, you made it to the end of our video. Great job. I know you want more. Go ahead and click the next video. And if you're feeling crazy, go ahead and subscribe.